One could imagine that a Martian lands in the wrong part of the track in Burlington, Vermont here, and sees all the problems that are not resolved, kids that are not being mentored, elderly not taken care of, streets that have potholes or whatever, and he notices that there are actually people and organizations perfectly capable of resolving each one of those issues. And he asked the question, what are you waiting for? And he said, we're waiting for money. And what is money? We don't have money in Mars, what is money? Well, it's an agreement in a community to use something as a medium of exchange. Just about anything can do, as long as we have an agreement on it. He may leave this planet thinking there is no intelligent life here.
Putting all kinds of people on the scrap heap whom we're declaring useless, whether it was teenagers, particularly teenagers of color, or seniors, or folks who are unemployed in Detroit or in Appalachia, or folks who are on public assistance in some form. And I thought to myself, I bet they don't like being useless either. Everybody has something to give, regardless of whether the market values them.
We're being programmed, in particular behavior patterns, by the kind of money that we are using. If you take all patriarchal societies in history and put them in one box, the common ground will be a monopoly. They'll be obliged to use that money. They will have positive interest rates. In other words, who has money gets more money. And they will all be a competitive, scarce thing. If you take all matrifocal societies that honor feminine values, they always had a dual currency system. You had one yang currency to trading with foreigners, long distance, people you don't know. And you had a yin currency for the local community. The yang side tends to be more, based on competition, is based on concentration, based on expansion, control, hierarchy. All these things are of a yang nature. The yin nature in polar ends is things like cooperation, things like collaboration between people, and instead of a hierarchy system, we'll have an equal value system, consensus mechanisms and all that. You always need a balance between the two for something to be in operation in a sustainable way.
How do we begin putting people and needs together in a new kind of way? Well, in what my sons call olden days, we used to use money to pay the people to deal with the problems. And if there wasn't going to be any of the old kind of money, I asked what I thought was a simple question. Why can't we invent a new kind of money?
There are other types of money that are possible. And I define as complementary currencies basically anything but national money that can function in parallel with national money and can be used as a medium of exchange. You can have commercial applications like frequent flyer miles have become a kind of complementary money. The more interesting ones are complementary currencies or social purpose ones, the ones that actually are not just facilitating commercial transactions, but actually are aiming at addressing specific social issues. And there are about 5,000 systems of that kind now in the world. So it definitely has been an explosion of it.
When you start your own money system, you start by designing the money. You could have a committee, but when you have a committee, you risk having a committee and not a local currency. So because, especially since it was a new idea back in 1991, I designed the money. And I took Xerox copies of it, and I went around to my friends and I waved it. I said, this is going to be money. We'll trade it with each other. Sign up here. And I gave them a copy, I gave them the clipboard. And they said, well, all right. And to their credit, they said, well, all right. Because they could have said, well, that's a dumb idea, and you'll get us all in trouble. They didn't say that, in Ithaca anyhow. They said, okay, here's what I offer, and here's what I need. And I created a list of about 90 such people, and then printed the first issue of the newspaper, Our Town, and put that out, 5,000 copies of it, in about 50 places all over town. Used my bicycle to move it around town. And then followed, then distributed to people, those first 90, their first allotment of Ithaca hours, 4 Ithaca hours each.
When you start designing a currency, you have a series of choices as to whether it's going to look like the dollar or like conventional currency, or whether you're going to change it.
For example, with the 1 hour note, a waterfall, an Ithaca waterfall, a monument of nature. On the back, a monument of local manufacture, the Ithaca calendar clock, something from a bygone era, well crafted, a beautiful item.
1 hour equals one time dollar, and that meant that meant a conscious decision to reject price as a characteristic of the currency.
The 8th hour, worth $1.25, features this salamander, endangered in the Ithaca area because of acid rain, and on the back, a bug found only in the Ithaca area. It eats bacteria which eat slime mold, which convert fallen trees into soil. And soil is the foundation of civilization. Without this bug, we would all die. And so we honor the bug. Thank you, bug.
All local currencies, so far as I know, have eliminated interest. And interest as a characteristic of money is what makes money, in effect, a commodity, so that it's more valuable for what you can invest, and you hear your money works for you, or your money does, you know. Most of the money made in the world that runs through the World Bank and not the World Bank, but world monetary exchanges, is about money making money off of money.
The quarter hour note, worth $2.50, has Ithaca's children on it. And that was a good decision, because people in Ithaca care about children. And caring about children means far more than giving them toys on their birthday and Christmas, and making sure that they're fed and well clothed and sent to school. It means having a society which is coherent on a planet which is healthy. And so such commerce we encourage through Ithaca Hours.
The simplest and most basic model would be to compare it to an all-purpose babysitting pool, where you have somebody who is at least jotting down who's giving hours, who's receiving hours, where everybody who joins describes what they'd like to do, what things they enjoy doing, and when they're available and when they're not available. The sort of neighbor-to-neighbor model is really building community of place, so that it might be set up in a public housing complex, it might be set up in a neighborhood. In New York City, it might exist on just one floor of a large, of a large building with 30 to 40 to 100 people living on just that floor. We've identified 6 key roles: an ambassador, a one-on-one person, an administrative person, a web person, a special events person, so that each person has specific responsibilities, and maybe they sign on for 6 months and then with an understanding that somebody else will take it from there.
The 2 hour note is made of 100% cattail paper, harvested by the railroad tracks and mashed into a pulp. It honors the earliest inhabitants of the Ithaca area, who were there in the shadow of the glaciers 10,000 years ago. They were happy enough, apparently, they at least survived without highways and shopping malls, and so we honor them.
We have registered in this country, at latest count, I think it was in the neighborhood of 80 to 85 time banks, but we're also learning about some each day and some that are starting up. In England, there are 89 time banks with another 70 in the works. This is now going in 22 countries. Then in Senegal, it's Muslim women who are earning time dollars because their husbands won't allow them to earn money, but they're literally running businesses. The businesses get the money, but they by virtue of time dollars get to access the things that money can buy, but they're not earning money from their husband's perspective. In South Korea, the Anglican Church In the first pilot program, 1,500 people paid for 50% of their hospital bills with time dollars earned, helping in the hospital and helping with hospital discharge. And the university is accepting time credits as part payment of tuition there. In Japan, it's spreading, sort of an hour medium of exchange is spreading rapidly now. And there must be about 70 time bank programs that we've identified in Japan, which is now using a whole variety of currencies, but the hour-based currency is now exceeding and more are shifting from a market price-based local currency to an hour-based currency.
To create a program of any grassroots kind means a lot of grunt work. Standing out in a public place saying, "Hi, we have this program, what do you think?" And it's a lot of fun. You want to join the fun?
The current status in the West of the complementary currency field is, I compare it to the Wright brothers aeronautics. Okay? In other words, this is very early, undeveloped stages of the stuff. We do have some examples, and I mean, it's great that they do exist, but the scale of what's needed is, needs to have a completely different scale to really create a different society.
Well, what we're doing is reconverting strangers into acquaintances, then into friends, and then into a new kind of extended family, and that's what we're really building with time dollars. And I think that's how we're trying to recreate a sense of community.
You begin with the people who are ready to begin, and you let the rest stand, stare, scoff, sneer, and laugh. It's fine. In Ithaca, we found so many of these people who were reluctant to be part of the Ithaca Hour system or the Ithaca Health Alliance have come around to it. My business plan is to begin and see what happens.
My breakthrough discovery is human beings. They're a really interesting species. We ought to check them out and see what they can do.
Things that sound impossible when you have a scarce currency and a monopoly of that become very obvious once you free that. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't have a world where an infinite amount of learning and beauty can be created. So, in other words, it's a feast for everybody.